Hello everyone, and welcome to another amazing story. What if Izuku had sunshine? Kairomaru wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Chapter 8, USJ Aftermath. In the aftermath of the villain attack on the USJ, many things went into motion. Some of these things, like the parents of Class 1A being called and informed of the situation, were expected. Other things, however, happened behind the scenes with only those that needed to know being aware. Forensics of the USJ, along with interrogation of the captured villains, revealed a plot to upset the peace of Japan as a whole. After all, killing All Might, the symbol of peace, would undoubtedly start a spiral of chaos that the nation hadn't seen in decades. Unknown to the students, the battle between Izuku and the bioengineered weapon called Nomu, plus his defeat of the leader of the attack, had led to startling discoveries. The leader of the League of Villains, one Shigaraki Tamura, had lost his arms. The blackened flesh was beyond saving, even with healing quirks. Both of the villain's arms, from below the bicep, were amputated to save his life. The gray-haired man had been practically catatonic since the attack. The Warp Gate villain, Kurogiri, had not registered as a single person when DNA tests had been performed. The villain's results more closely matched the samples that had been extracted from the charred feet of the bioweapon, Nomu. Multiple people's DNA had been found in both Nomu and Kurogiri. Along with these findings came the horrifying discovery of both possessing multiple quirks. With Nizu being the pro-hero that had taken on the case, to work on it with the police and offer his immense intellect, it was an easy matter to fill All Might in on the findings. "I can't believe it." All Might's fist clenched tightly as he read over the report in Nizu's office. "He's still alive?" The near-skeletal man growled. Only one person had the ability to forcefully implant multiple quirks in people. All for One was still alive, even after Toshinori had done everything in his power to kill the monster. "It would seem so," Nizu nodded as he prepared tea for the two of them. "However, what is much more disturbing are these lab results from the Nomu and the Warp Gate villain, Kurogiri. Such genetic modification, and the various operations that both have gone through, speaks of professional medical training. A doctor with decades of experience, most likely. Is that how he survived?" Toshinori blinked, looking up at the chimera-like principal. "He had a skilled doctor to keep him alive?" "It is my current theory," Nizu acknowledged as he poured Toshinori a cup of tea and then one for himself. "But such skill is not something that just any doctor would have. On that note, to be able to create two bioengineered creatures, one capable of human-level reasoning and actions, is not something that any medical professional would simply learn. No, what we're dealing with is a medical professional that's not only had years of training and experience, but perhaps decades of illegal experimentation as well. Of course he'd find someone like that." Toshinori scowled as he picked up his tea. A sip did little to soothe his nerves, but it helped a tiny bit. Manipulating alpha factors and quirks to this degree though, merging quirks together. That's not something that can just be done. All for One must be providing assistance while the doctor modifies the bodies of these Nomu creatures. Yes, the Kurogiri Nomu was an unpleasant revelation to say the least. Nizu sighed heavily, knowing he'd need to bring Aizawa, Hizashi, and Nomuri onto the case. None of them would be pleased at the previous identity of Kurogiri. It honestly made Nizu's stomach turn. Just knowing that this villainy had been going on for so long, it was unsettling. Young Midoriya is far more powerful than even I imagined after seeing him at the entrance exams. Toshinori moved the subject on, knowing that lamenting on the discoveries wouldn't do anyone any good. To think he resolved this incident almost single-handedly. "When he goes pro, I think we'll have a bit less to worry about in the future." The blond man smiled slightly. "We can only guide him through his time here at UA and put forth challenges to bring out his best." Nizu hummed with a grin of his own. "His quick actions and sound defeat of this League of Villains has brought much to light that we were unaware of. Now is the time for us pros to go to work." The chimera gave Toshinori a serious look, one which was returned with a powerful gaze. "Yes, it is." Toshinori's tone was powerful in its finality. Midoriya residence. Izuku had been picked up by his parents after the incident at the USJ, just like all the other students of Class 1A. His mother had fretted over him, even after seeing his worst injuries were mostly just some bruises and a small cut on the inside of his mouth. Recovery Girl had healed him in a matter of moments at the scene. But Inko and Hisashi wouldn't be his parents if both hadn't been concerned and worried. He'd held his mother for the majority of the rest of the day and into the evening. reassuring her as many times as she needed that he was fine and everything was okay. Hisashi had ordered food for the family and sat with his wife and son the whole time. Unbeknownst to Izuku, a similar scene was being played out in most of the homes of his classmates as well. Parents holding their children close and offering their ears to listen to their children's feelings. What all of the teens mentioned was that it was thanks to their classmate Midoriya that not a single one of them was hurt. Izuku was already being regarded as a hero among the parents of Class 1A. It was yet another heroic act that he was credited for without even knowing it. With classes cancelled for both Hero Course 1A and 1B the next day, the students had more time to come to grips with what they'd gone through. 1B was given the rundown on what had occurred at the USJ. Their own rescue training would be postponed until the following week. All systems at the USJ facility were being gone over and given new security in that time. During this day off, Toga had naturally come over to the Midoriya home to be with Izuku. Izuku's room. I'm fine, Himiko-chan. Izuku held his snuggling girlfriend closer, gently running his fingers through her blonde locks. I know, but you worried me. Toga mumbled out as she held him close. When I saw the explosion I panicked. Seeing you using that much power, it scared me. Knowing that someone among the villains was that strong and was pushing you that far, I thought I might lose you. She buried her head into his neck and breathed in his scent. I'm not going anywhere, Himiko-chan. Izuku tightened his hold on her and kissed the top of her head. I'm just glad you're all right, Izuku-in. Toga nuzzled him gently. But you have some making up to do for worrying me like that, mister? She huffed as they continued to hold each other while lying on his bed. I'm fine with that, Izuku smiled into her hair. I think I know a good way to start too. I'm listening, Toga grinned against his neck. Let's start with a foot rub and then after school one day this week we'll have a date to any place you want. Izuku gently squeezed Toga closer to him. Will that work? I think so, Toga giggled playfully as she pulled back to look him in the eyes. The two gazed warmly at each other, they moved closer without words and their lips met. It was a gentle kiss, filled with love and affection, promises of the future and all the time in the world. Both teens felt their hearts thrum in their chests as they pulled each other as close as possible. They both inhaled deeply when they finally separated. I love you, Toga Himiko. Izuku rested his forehead against Toga's gently. I love you too, Midoriya Izuku. Toga returned his love with all of her own. Let me get some supplies ready and we'll get to your foot rub. Izuku smiled at her. Toga giggled as she slowly let him go. Izuku knew how to pamper and dote on her. It made Toga love him all the more. Inko and Hisashi could only smile as Izuku went about the kitchen and bathroom. He was clearly about to give Toga-chan a foot rub. The doting on his girlfriend he'd learned from his father, including foot rubs. It lifted worry and tension off both parents' shoulders to see the teens acting normally. At the very least the incident didn't seem to have traumatized the two. I'll make an extra place for dinner tonight. Inko smiled brightly when Izuku went back into his room with his supplies. Toga-chan won't want to leave after a good foot rub. Speaking of, maybe I should give you one tonight too? Hisashi offered his wife with a smile. I'm sure we could both use a little relaxation after what happened. Hisashi. Inko giggled at her husband as he pulled her into his lap and kissed her cheek. Never let it be said that their marriage wasn't full of love, even after 16 years. U.A. Heights Principal Nizu's office. Do you know why you're here, Midoriya? Nizu asked the verdette first year. I believe so, sir. Izuku nodded to the principal. Then are you ready to learn what your punishment will be for going off on your own in the middle of a crisis? Nizu looked at the teen seriously. I was prepared the moment I leapt into action. Izuku replied resolutely, more than okay with whatever happened. He didn't regret what he'd done. If given the chance to do it again, he'd make the same call every time. You'll be suspended for the rest of this week. Nizu began, his black eyes locked with Izuku's green. During that time you'll write a formal apology to both Aizawa and 13 for going off on your own during the villain attack. On top of that, you'll write an essay on the relevant laws that you technically broke with your actions for me. I think 5,000 words will suffice. Yes sir, I'll do so. Izuku gave a respectful bow to the principal. Very good, Midoriya, we'll see you back here Monday morning. Nizu dismissed the teen from his office. Thank you, principal. Izuku rose from his bow and gave the chimera a nod. With that, the verdette turned and left the office. Willing to act in crisis and also willing to accept the consequences of his actions. Truly he will be an excellent hero in the future. Nizu commented after the teen had left. There was a smile on the principal's face. Izuku texted Toga about his punishment, letting her know that he wouldn't be in class until Monday. Just as he suspected, Toga had ranted in her reply about the school being ungrateful and that he should be getting recognition for his actions instead of punishment. He calmed her with several texts on his way off the campus. They only stopped when the bell for homeroom rang and Toga had to pay attention in class. A hidden location. What do we do now? An old man with goggles, a lab coat, and a mustache asked the man sitting in a chair and hooked up to a life support system. The man had the top half of his head marred by horrible scar tissue. His eyes were gone, along with his hair. The various tubes and wires connected to the man gave off the impression that he was at death's door. In contrast to the life support system, the man wore a tailored, black suit that was clean and sharp. His appearance was such a contrast that one might make the mistake of believing this injured man wasn't on borrowed time. I did not expect Tamura to fail so utterly, the injured man remarked, watching the footage stolen from the hijacked USJ security system. A single teen, a first-year Hero Corps student, had soundly dealt with Kurogiri, Nomu, and Tamura. The verdette was not only powerful physically, but he clearly trumped every other pyrokinetic that the injured man had ever seen. The man had lived a very long time too, so that was saying something. Who is this boy? Midoriya Izuku, according to the class roster that was stolen along with the schedules. The old man informed the suit-wearing man as he brought up the information, what little there was on Izuku. A type hybrid. How rare. The injured man commented. It wasn't often you saw one like this boy. What should we do going forward? The old man asked again. We were counting on Tamura for your plan. Your quirk isn't compatible with most people. It's just too powerful, the strain even a weakened form of it puts on the body is often too much for others. Patience, doctor, we still have some time left to fix things. The injured man replied. This was followed by a coughing fit that saw some blood on the man's hand. His breathing was ragged afterwards as he lay back in his chair. We don't have that much time left. The doctor shook his head. My quirk won't prolong my life much longer. Your injuries aren't healing even with the best of my treatments. If we don't find a compatible host soon, then our decades of planning will be for nothing. All the work we've put into cloning quirks, all the advancements we've made, all the Noma we've made, it'll all have been for nothing. The old doctor became frenzied at the ever-approaching time limit the two of them had. Be silent, Dr. Garaki, you're losing your composure. The injured man spoke sharply. I'm just concerned, all for one, that the decades we've spent will go to waste if we both run out of time. Dr. Garaki exhaled heavily. Truly the weight of the years was beginning to wear heavily on the old man. We will find a compatible host and then we will resume the plan quickly. All for one replied calmly. This is merely another speed bump in our path. We've dealt with plenty of those over the years. What's one more? I suppose you're right, Dr. Garaki composed himself. If only I had been able to find the hyper-regeneration quirk before your battle with All Might. We cannot change the past, Doctor. All for one inhaled and exhaled a few times before he continued. We can only change the future, and change it we shall. I'll search the international quirk registries I have access to. Perhaps there will find someone compatible with All for One. We need a new host to bring about the fruition of our plans. Dr. Garaki began making his way towards his vast array of computers. Do so, Doctor. I have the utmost faith in you. All for one grinned as he lay back in his chair and let the medicine ease the pain that was a constant in his body ever since the fight with All Might. U.A. High school Monday morning. Izuku and Toga made their way towards their classroom from the teacher's lounge. Izuku had turned in his two formal apologies and the essay for Nizu. Toga was still annoyed that Izuku was punished for making the USJ attack into a virtual non-incident. Izuku, for his part, had expected punishment and was fine with serving it. Even heroes weren't exempt from the consequences of their actions. When the two entered Class 1's room, they were quickly noticed. Dude, Midoriya, you're back. Kirishima smiled at his verdette buddy. Midoriya. Kaminari waved as he joined Kirishima in walking towards the couple. From there it was almost a deluge of his classmates coming to greet him. The other students repeatedly thanking him for his quick actions and dealing with real villains. Izuku took their praise as humbly as he could, like his parents had taught him, but even his cheeks were starting to turn red from the parade of thanks. Toga stifled her giggles as she held his hand through it all. Take your seats, class is about to start. Aizawa spoke up as he entered the room. Everyone was in their seats and attentive in seconds, prompting a nod from their teacher. Now we've gone over this before, but since Midoriya has rejoined us, I'll announce it again. The UA Sports Festival is coming up. Yes. Kirishima cheered with his fists raised in front of him. Let's go kick some ass. He was quieted by Kaminari's hand being shoved against his face. Wait a second. Kaminari protested. The blonde was clearly repeating something he'd already said before. Is it really such a good idea to still hold the sports festival after villains attacked? Kyuka questioned Aizawa, getting a nod from Kaminari. Izuku was willing to bet that this conversation had happened more than once already during his suspension. I mean, couldn't they attack again when even more people are packed into one place? Shiro asked, and a few students looked questioningly towards Aizawa. The administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled, that our school is safer than ever. Aizawa spoke in the tone of someone repeating the same words for the umpteenth time. Plus, they're increasing security compared to past years. This event is a huge opportunity for all students at UA. It's not something we can cancel because of a failed villain attack. Why not? It's just the sports festival. Mineta looked worried at the thought of another potential villain attack. Mineta, Izuku turned to look at the boy that sat behind him. Don't you know how important the sports festival is? Of course I do. Mineta responded while small beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. I just don't want to get murdered. The UA Sports Festival is one of the most watched events in the country. Aizawa spoke a bit louder to end their conversation. When it comes to competition between future heroes, the UA Sports Festival is #1 in Japan for viewership. That's right, Momo agreed from her seat behind Mineta. Top heroes from all over the country will be watching. This is an event where you can get scouted. Yeah, unless you're dead. Mineta retorted, still looking uneasy about the event. She's got a point though, Kaminari piped up with a grin. After graduation, a lot of people join pro agencies as a sidekick. Yeah, but that's as far as some people ever go. Kyuka glanced at the blonde. They miss their chance to go independent and stay eternal sidekicks. Actually, that's probably where you're headed. You're kinda dumb sometimes. Ow. Kaminari practically pouted at the critique. It's true that getting scouted and joining a famous hero agency can get you more experience and even popularity. Aizawa admitted to the class of teens. That's why this festival matters. If you want to go pro one day, this event can open up doors for you. You get 1 chance a year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this festival. Which means you can't slack off in your lessons or training. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The class chorused. Several hours later, after their modern literature class with Cementos, the bell rang to signal the students' lunch break. Class 1A were naturally still talking about the upcoming sports festival. Some were excited, others were nervous, some didn't seem to care much or were very good at hiding it. I am so pumped for this festival. Kirishima exclaimed, showing he was clearly part of the excited crowd. Heck yeah, if we put on a good show, we're practically on the road to being pros. Shiro grinned at the redhead. He was also a part of the excited group. That's why we're all here in the first place, right? Sato grinned as he punched his right fist into his left palm. We get so few chances, so we have to make the most of this. Tokoyami agreed with the other guys. I'm kind of jealous, Shoji. Your quirk is so unique, you'll definitely stand out. Kaminari sighed as he looked at the Dupli Arms user. Possibly, but what matters the most is to show the pros how useful I can be. Shoji replied as he waved off Kaminari's enviousness. Results were much better for getting scouted than just being noticeable. At least that was Shoji's take on the festival. No doubt you'll make a scene too. Kyuka snickered at Kaminari, reminding the electrification user of his dopey state. Kaminari grumbled at the ribbing. Everyone is so excited, Izuku-an. Toga beamed at her boyfriend. Of course, everyone wants to be pro heroes. The festival is their first shot to get scouted. Izuku smiled back at her, pulling her into a gentle hug. Toga. Midoriya. Let's do our best in the sports festival. Ochako had such a serious face that most of the class had to blink to make sure she was still the same Uraraka they knew. Everyone. I'm gonna do my best. Ochako threw her fist into the air. There seemed to be a pink aura of determination coming off of the girl. Yeah. Several students replied, throwing a fist into the air with the suddenly competitive brunette. I said I'm gonna do my best. Uraraka threw her fist into the air a second time. Ochako-chan. Are you okay? Toga questioned with her head tilted to the side. She'd never seen her friend so competitive before. At lunch, Toga and Izuku found a quiet spot out in the courtyard together. The couple had taken their meals from the cafeteria and sat in the shade of a tree. They sat almost shoulder to shoulder as they ate, occasionally sharing bites of food with each other. The two were so absorbed with each other they didn't notice that many of their peers were glancing at the adorable scene. Several of the upper-year girls were giggling or cooing at the couple. Quite a few other couples were doing much the same as Toga and Izuku on the lovely clear day. "They're so adorable," a blue-haired girl commented to her friends as they sat a ways away from the first-year couple. "Aren't they? So cute." Yes, now calm down and eat your lunch." A red-headed girl next to the brunette smiled. She was always so excitable. It was the cutest thing in the galaxy. Chapter 9, the UA Sports Festival. The bell had just rung to signal the end of the day's last class. As Class 1A packed up their things over the next minutes, only a few noticed a muffled sound coming from the hallway outside. When Ochako opened the door to leave, she was met by a corridor full of other students. "Why the heck are you all here?" Ochako exclaimed, seeing the horde of students just staring at her and the rest of 1A through the open door. "Do you all have some kind of business with our class?" Ida questioned the large group. "Why were you blocking our doorway? Are you trying to hold us hostage?" Mineta demanded of the group. "They're scouting out the competition, idiots." Bakugo sneered as he walked up to the door. "We're the class that got attacked by real villains. They want to see us with their own eyes." A few students of Class 1A showed annoyance with Bakugo's normal abrasive attitude. Ochako frowned. Mineta pointed right at Bakugo while gaping at the rudeness. Izuku shook his head at the ash blonde while Toga rolled her eyes at the jackass as she thought of him. "Well, at least now you all know what a future pro looks like." Bakugo stated straight to the faces of their fellow year mates. "Now move it, extras." "Really?" Izuku figured Bakugo's attitude was permanent nowadays. The explosion quirk user was always going to be like this. You can't just go around calling people extras just because you don't know who they are, Bakugo. Ida admonished the red-eyed teen while chopping the air with his right arm. "So this is Class 1A? A purple-haired male student questioned as he made his way through the crowd. "I heard you guys survived a real villain attack. But you just sound like an ass." The teen stared Bakugo dead in the eye as he called him out and then continued as he finally got to the front of the crowd. "Is everyone in the hero course delusional, or is it just you?" "Huh." Bakugo growled as a vein became visible on his forehead. Several of the 1A students were shaking their heads and trying to wave the new person off before he made Bakugo explode. "How sad to come here and find a bunch of egomaniacs." The guy rubbed the back of his head, his wild purple hair moving slightly from the motion. "I wanted to be in the hero course, but like many others here I was forced to choose a different track. Such is life." Bakugo seemed to be getting angrier as the other teen continued to speak. "I didn't cut it the first time around, but now I have another chance. If any of us do well in the sports festival, the teachers can decide to move us to the hero course. That means they'd have to transfer people out to make room." A few of the members of Class 1A stiffened up at that reminder. Tisk. Bakugo looked a few seconds away from snapping entirely. "Scouting the competition? Maybe some of my peers are, but I'm here to let you know that if you don't bring your very best, I'll steal your spot right from under you. Consider this a declaration of war." The teen stated plainly and clearly. "I didn't put in all the extra work both before and after the entrance exams to lose to anyone that's not serious about being a hero. Where'd this guy even come from?" was the thought running through most of Class 1's minds. "Hey, I'm from Class 1B. We heard you guys were attacked by some villains. I wanted to see what was up, but you're just a bunch of punks that think you're better than us." Another new guy yelled as he pushed his way forward. He had long, chin-length, messy gray hair and black eyes which were tilted slightly inwards. Each eye had very thick, jagged, tan-colored eyelashes that almost seemed to surround them when the teen's eyes were opened. He didn't appear to have any noticeable eyebrows, though much like Kirishima, he had sharp, pointed teeth. "Damn it, everyone is going to hate our class now." Several of the Class 1A students screamed internally. "That's a rather brash claim to make, isn't it?" Izuku stepped forward, with Toga beside him. "When did any of us say we thought we were better than you, exactly?" "Huh." The silver-haired loudmouth looked at Izuku blankly. "You said we all thought we were better than your class, right?" Izuku looked the other teen dead in the eye as he spoke. "I'm curious as to how you came to that conclusion, considering none of us has said anything except for Bakugo being his normal, abrasive self." The other teen fumbled a bit, kicking up whispers and muttering from the crowd. The purple-haired teen that declared war was looking at Izuku with a raised eyebrow. "You jumped to conclusions and made up your own mind." Toga spoke for the Class 1B student. She dealt with plenty of people doing that when they learned what her quirk was. Yeah. The other teen looked sheepish as he rubbed the back of his head. "Look, that was my bad. I'm sorry I jumped to conclusions. I'm Tetsu from Class 1B. I wanted to come see Class 1A, but I lost my cool after hearing the blonde guy run his mouth." It's fine, Bakugo has a way of pissing off everyone around him when he opens his mouth. Toga chuckled mirthlessly. Fuck off. Bakugo shouted back as he stomped off through the crowd. Oh no, I made him upset. Toga overacted badly, like she cared, and Izuku placed his hand on her shoulder to calm her down. Ha, so maybe you aren't all full of yourselves after all. The purple-haired guy spoke up with a sigh. But my declaration of war still stands. I will get into the hero course. One of those 40 seats is going to be mine by the festival's end. With that he turned and walked away, and the crowd of students began to disperse. Well, that was different, Ochako mentioned, and the tension in Class 1A began to fade away as the students picked up their bags and left the room to head home. This sports festival is going to be fun. Toga giggled as she and Izuku walked towards the train station hand in hand. I'm looking forward to the competition. Izuku agreed as they walked. Maybe there would be other students that could challenge him? That would be great. Izuku needed some good training partners to push himself against so that he could continue to improve. The next 2 weeks were spent taking every opportunity to train for almost every student that was in the hero course, or wanted to get into said course. The school's gym and track facilities saw a sharp uptick in use, though this happened every year around this time, so the teachers all got a chuckle out of it. Except Aizawa, he just rolled his eyes and went back to his current information gathering. Under Nizu's recommendation, Aizawa, Hizashi, and Namuri had been brought into the League of Villains case. As the hyper-intelligent Chimera had suspected, all 3 pros had been shocked, horrified, and then downright furious when they'd seen the results of Kurogiri's DNA tests. The 3 had immediately gone through everything that was known so far and started getting in touch with their various contacts. Aizawa, as an underground hero, had several more contacts that watched over the back alley deals and other crimes that most pros rarely saw. The type of crime and the kind of criminals that stayed hidden and never brought attention to themselves. So far the Erasure hero hadn't found any leads that went anywhere. There was no talk of anyone going missing, no whispers of strange drugs or offers of quirk enhancement going around. It was odd. Those were the types of things that usually led to scummy, illegal underground operations for people desperate to strengthen their quirks. Aizawa had busted a fair number of them himself during his career. Usually trigger rings or some other quirk-enhancing drug that someone had tried to cook up. Nizu and Detective Tsukachi had both been discreetly looking into doctors, both active and retired, that fit the profile of skills they'd built up with Recovery Girl's assistance. At the moment, none of the people they'd looked into had any connection to the League that they could find. The detective's polygraph quirk was put to use often during the course of their investigation so far. They still had more than half the list to go, so they were hopeful to get a solid lead. But if they didn't, Nizu was already making backup plans and looking into other routes of investigation to find the truth. U.A. Gym facility? Too slow, Izu. Toga laughed as she landed a punch against her boyfriend's left side. Had Toga been fighting with her preferred knives, that would have been a debilitating stab wound. Your evasion and speed have both definitely improved, Himiko-chan. Izuku praised the blonde as they sparred on one of the large padded spaces that UA had in their gym facilities. I haven't even taken your form for a boost either. Toga giggled as she swayed around a punch, kick, kick combo. One of her favorite battle tactics was to use some of the stored energy that her quirk turned blood into for her transformations and then take on Izuku's form. Even without being able to use his quirks, her boyfriend was still impressively strong and fit. The added freak-out factor of seeing a teen girl suddenly turn into a muscular male teen and gain almost 15 centimeters in height was also tactically advantageous, as well as funny, in Toga's opinion. Well, at least the gym uniform is unisex. Izuku sighed as he blocked a kick and upset Toga's balance. He'd seen himself wearing Toga's clothes more times than he'd care to admit, honestly. Toga thought it was hilarious to walk around in his form wearing a skirt and a cute top. He wasn't as much of a fan. We have to wear the gym uniform while we participate in the sports festival, so I'll be able to use my quirk more freely too, since everyone is wearing the same outfit. Toga remarked as she rolled and then skipped up to her feet before retaking her stance. You're going to do amazing, Himiko-chan. Izuku assured as he closed the distance and engaged. I'll do my best, but you can't help me out, Izuku-kun? Toga shook her head as she ducked and weaved around his strikes. The blonde's footwork was a thing of beauty. The sports festival is a competition, so we'll be competing against each other. I'll remember. Izuku promised as he caught her arm. Good. Toga used his hold on her arm to jump up and land a double kick to his stomach. The blow didn't do much, but it did loosen his grip enough for her to escape. Man, those two are really going all out. Toru marveled as she and the other girls took a break. Toga even sparred with you and me before this. Mina shook her head before taking a drink from her water bottle. She plans to spar with me afterwards too. Ochako looked on amazed as Toga and Izuku continued on with their spar. Her stamina is something to be admired. Momo agreed as she and Kyuka sat next to each other. Well, we'll just have to improve our own stamina then. Tsuyu stated with her index finger on her cheek. I'm all for that. Kyuka breathed out as she got her heart rate under control. Training with you guys is showing me that I've neglected my physical training a bit too much. Oh, he caught her. Mina noticed Izuku catch Toga in a bear hug. How's she going to get out of this one? Ochako leaned forward to watch. By kissing him, apparently. Toru burst into giggles as the group watched Toga's lips meet Izuku's. The couple quickly forgot about their spar as they kissed. Many cheeks went bright red as the girls of Class 1A watched on. Beginning of the sports festival. Man, I really wanted to wear my costume, Mina complained as the whole class was in their designated waiting room. Everyone was wearing the standard UA gym uniform for the festival. It's to keep things fair, Mina, Momo reminded the Pinkette. The other classes don't have costumes, so gym uniforms level the playing field, so to speak. Not counting each individual's advantage from their quirk. I wonder what the first round is going to be this year? Sato pondered aloud as he distracted himself so that nerves wouldn't build up. The anticipation of not knowing is the worst. It doesn't matter what comes. We must face down whatever the organizers have set up to challenge us. Tokoyami replied with his eyes closed and arms crossed. He's right, we have to show that we can handle whatever comes our way like real heroes. Shoji agreed with Tokoyami as he sat at one of the tables. Is everybody ready? We'll be entering the stadium soon. Ida announced as he watched the clock. One by one the class stood up and prepared to head out to the field. It was time to prove their worth as future heroes. However, Todoroki approached Izuku, who was quietly talking with Toga. Midoriya. The red and white-haired teen spoke up. Izuku turned to look at his classmate while everyone else watched the two most powerful students in their class talk. What's up, Todoroki? Izuku questioned as he looked at the ice and fire user. He was still kind of bummed that Todoroki wouldn't practice pyrokinesis with him. Looking at things objectively, you and I are the strongest people in this room right now. You are probably a bit stronger than me, Todoroki stated bluntly, not caring about the rest of the class clearly hearing their conversation. Bakugo bristled at the slight and looked half a second away from yelling at Todoroki. What about it? Izuku quirked his eyebrow at the other teen's words. Todoroki had barely said 2 words to him since their match during All Might's class. Regardless of your power, Todoroki continued to stare at Izuku. I am going to beat you. Everyone else in the room was rather shocked at the bold statement, particularly when it came so suddenly from one of the quietest members of their class. Didn't see this coming at all. Kaminari blinked, looking back and forth between Izuku and Todoroki. Some of the other students looked uneasy at this sudden declaration. Toga looked like she was debating whether to slap Todoroki or laugh in his face. Hey. Why are you trying to pick a fight now of all times? We're about to begin the festival. Kirishima tried to ease the tension that was building in the room. I welcome the competition, Todoroki. Izuku grinned at the two-tone boy. But you seem to be forgetting that you have far more competition than just me. If you let your focus rest solely on me, any one of them could pass you by in this festival. Every student in the room perked up at this indirect pep talk from the strongest member of their class. Except Bakugo that just quietly muttered about murdering them all in the festival and winning the whole thing. Mineta, who was the closest to the explosion quirk user, slid away from him quickly. That response was so manly, Midoriya. Kirishima fist pumped excitedly. There was a wide smile on his face. It's time to go. Everyone, let's make our way to the field in an orderly fashion. Ida declared as he marched to the door and left the room. He's always so stiff. Mina laughed brightly and the remaining tension in the room vanished as Toga joined in the laughter. Present Mike shouted from the booth, causing the crowd to cheer loudly. Make some noise, sports fans. Get those cameras prepped, media hordes. This year we're bringing you some of the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show. Are you ready? Let me hear you make some noise as our students make their way to the big stage. How did I get roped into this? Aizawa grumbled from his seat next to Present Mike. Time to welcome our students to the field. Mike announced loudly as the first years began to emerge from the tunnel and onto the field. Going in alphabetical order, we start with our 2 hero course classes. Give it up for Class 1A and Class 1B. The crowd exploded into cheers as Class 1A appeared along with Class 1B. After the news of the attack on the USJ broke, people had wondered how an attack by so many villains had been stopped by only 2 teachers and a single student. If the rumors were to be believed, of course. Damn, this place is completely packed. Zero mentioned it, seeing the massive crowd and all of the cameras flashing. Next up we have the students that keep UA High as one of the top 3 academic scoring high schools in Japan every year. There are general studies classes 1C, 1D and 1E. Look out, hero course. Some of them are looking to take your place in one of those 40 seats. Present Mike hyped up the ground while praising the general studies students for their hard work. Izuku briefly noticed a few of the students start walking a bit taller at the pro's words. Some of our hero core students could learn a thing or two about grades from them. Aizawa spoke, and a few of the hero core students from both classes flinched slightly. Now we have our talented students that produce the gear that gets things done. Support course classes 1F, 1G and 1H. Make some noise. Mike shouted as the support course students, some of them with their own self-made gear on, walked onto the field. Anyone that wants to go pro needs to make connections with support gear designers. Quality gear can be the deciding factor in the field. Aizawa remarked, and several of the support course students grinned. And last but certainly not least, the ones who learn the ins and outs of our economy and how to market the heroes and their causes. Business course classes 1I, 1J, and 1K. If you want to be an independent pro, you better make some friends here, hero course students. Present Mike declared loudly as the crowd's energy kept building. The business course students smiled and chuckled at the pro's statements. He wasn't wrong though. Any pro that hoped to go independent in the mainstream of the hero industry better have some good marketing and representation. Many pros that became so-called eternal sidekicks did so because they failed to cultivate good working relationships with representation firms. That was actually a pretty fair introduction for all courses. A brunette girl from the general studies course mentioned just loud enough for Izuku to catch. With all of the first years gathered in the middle of the field, a loud crack caught their attention. From up on the stage appeared Midnight in all her voluptuous glory. Almost every man in the audience grinned or smiled at the beautiful pro. It's time for the opening speech. Midnight announced into the microphone with a grin. Please welcome this year's chief umpire for the first-year tournament, the R-rated hero Midnight. Present Mike presented to the cheers of the crowd, especially the male section. What about the principal? One of the attendees asked another. He's always at the third-year stage every year. The guy next to him answered back, not taking his eyes off Midnight. Someone might want to talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing. Kirishima mentioned with his cheeks slightly red. Yeah, that costume should definitely come with a warning label. Kaminari agreed, even though he hadn't taken his eye off the pro since she appeared. Teenage hormones were a powerful thing. Is that really appropriate apparel for a high school sports festival? Tokoyami questioned as the pro prepared to start the festival properly. A few of Class 1A noticed Mineta giving a very enthusiastic thumbs up. He was also staring hard at Midnight as if trying to grope her with his eyes. Silence, everyone! Midnight yelled, whipping the air to get everyone's attention. For the student pledge we have Midoriya Izuku of Class 1A. Every eye turned to the verdette teenager. Izuku knew this was because he had scored the highest during the entrance exam. So this was at least expected. Toga nudged him forward and Izuku gave her a warm smile. As he walked towards the stage he heard the murmuring of the crowd. As he headed to the microphone, Midnight gave him a gentle nod of support. I'm pleased to be representing my fellow first-year students. Izuku gave a nod to the crowd of students on the field. I know that some of you aren't really into this event, while others of you are gunning for one of the 40 seats in the hero course. To both groups I say this, let's have some fun. But to those that are after one of our seats, a different message. Bring your best. We earned our seats in the entrance exam. If you wish to take them from us, then earn your seat here and now at the sports festival. We all welcome the competition. Let's all push each other higher towards our goal of being heroes. The crowd exploded into raucous applause at the short speech. Cheering and cries of motivation rang out from the crowd. Midnight squealed and hugged herself from the youthful passion, as she called it. Even all of the first-year students began to clap for Izuku's words. With a short bow, Izuku walked back down the stairs towards his class and his girlfriend. What a pledge. If that hasn't roused your spirit and fired you up, you must already be dead. Present Mike blasted out through the speakers. With that awesome pledge and the spirit of competition blazing, let's reveal our first event for this year's sports festival. Get your foot off the desk. Aizawa's voice was barely heard as the crowd continued to roar and cheer. Time to find out the first game of the festival. Midnight cried out as a display lit up behind her and began spinning through options. This is when our students start experiencing the pressure for the first time. This year's first event is. The display stopped on the words, obstacle race. An obstacle race. Midnight cracked her whip while giving a somewhat sadistic smile. Here we go. Present Mike yelled loudly while all the students looked on at their first event. Now the sports festival had started for real. End chapter. Chapter 10, Obstacle Race. An obstacle race? The first-year students chorused as they looked at the display screen. The course will be one full lap around this stadium. The total length is 4 kilometers. As you all know, UA High's selling point is freedom. Midnight gave a sadistic look as she licked her lips. There are only 2 rules. First, you have to run the entire course. No shortcuts or you'll be disqualified. The pro cracked her whip towards the first years. The second rule, no attacking other students. Messing with the field to your advantage is fine, direct attacks are not. Other than that, everything goes. You know the rules now, little listeners. Play fair and get back here first to be the winner. Break either of the 2 rules and you're out of the festival completely. Present Mike called out through the stadium speakers. Now then, take your places, everyone. Midnight yelled, making the crowd cheer as the first event was about to begin. The students began to move to the tunnel that marked the starting line. Izuku and Toga stood side by side as they waited for the race to begin. They gave each other a warm but competitive smile as they got ready. Izuku briefly glanced around at the rest of the students. The Hero Corps students all looked determined and prepared. The reminder that their seats were up for grabs seemed to have lit a fire in the 40 students. He saw the same determination in a few other students from different courses. The one with the most profound look was the purple-haired teen that had made the declaration of war against Class 1A. The countdown to begin started as the first of 3 lights, a red light, went out. I wonder what the prize is for winning this race. Izuku mused briefly. It wouldn't be out of character for the sports festival for the winner of the first event to be given something for the next round. Or would the prize actually be a detriment? He wouldn't put it past UA to make success another trial. The second light, yellow this time, went out. No time to wonder about it now, I'll just do my best. Izuku grinned as his body bulked up and heat began radiating from his form. The final light, a green light, flashed on. Start. Both Midnight and Mike yelled at the same time. In an instant every student rushed forward. Izuku took a single leap and cleared the entire crowd faster than most could notice. Toga playfully rolled her eyes as her boyfriend rocketed with a burst of his ridiculous strength. Okay, let's check out the action. Are you ready to give commentary, Eraser? Present Mike asked Aizawa. I'm still not sure why I had to be up here in the first place. Aizawa drawled out. We'll get started right away, Eraser. What should the crowd pay attention to in the first few minutes of the race? Mike continued as if Aizawa hadn't lamented being there. The moves made right in this opening section will be important. Aizawa commented as he watched all of the first years rush into the narrow tunnel. Inside the tunnel, yelling and shouting began as the participants were squeezed together. Trying to run through the tunnel at the same time was proving impossible. It was far too narrow for all of them to pass through at once, and many realized that it had been designed this way on purpose. This was clearly a test of ingenuity to see how they'd get through and take a lead in the race. A sudden drop in temperature made the majority of the students start shivering. The floor was covered in a sheet of ice and most of the first year's shoes froze over, sticking them in place. Several dozen calls of alarm, or outright accusations of cheating, rang out as Todoroki ran past the immobilized students. Sorry, but I have to win this race, Todoroki stated while leaving a trail of ice right behind him. It would make it hard for those that freed themselves to walk, much less run, to try and catch up. Like hell, icy hot. Bakugo roared as he was already in the air with his explosions firing to keep him airborne. Nice try, Todoroki. Kirishima yelled out as he leapt forward in a long jump to clear the spreading ice before it could entrap him. That was naive, Todoroki. Momo commented as she produced a long pole from her palm and used it to vault herself over the ice trap. Excuse me, sorry, coming through? The purple-haired teen made multiple apologies as he practically parkoured over other students to avoid the ice. Many of said students were already trapped by the spreading frost and he wasn't going to be one of them. Literally using the trapped students as stepping stones wasn't his original plan, but it wasn't as if the bicolored teen had given anybody much time to think. Your ice can't stop my sparkle. Aoyama stated while firing his laser and being carried through the air by the force his unique energy generated. Nope. Toga laughed as she used her speed and athleticism to pull off a wall run and make it out of the icebox that the narrow tunnel had become. Hey, that was close. Mina shouted as her special shoes secreted her acid onto the ice. The liquid dissolved the ice and made small, clear patches on the track where Mina stepped. I'm so glad I practiced this. Ochako floated above the track, her weightless form moving quickly through the air from her initial kickoff. Her stomach was already starting to feel bad though, so she'd have to land soon. Not a fan of the cold. Tsuyu stated as she was almost beside Ochako in the air. Her frog form Quirk had easily let her leap out of the tunnel entirely. You think you can get ahead of me, you half-and-half bastard? Bakugo yelled as he set off stronger explosions to increase his speed. More people dodged that than I expected. Todoroki noted as he continued to run. The hybrid Quirk user refocused on the track ahead of him before blinking in shock. Izuku had already left the tunnel entirely by the time Todoroki had sprung his trap. He'd landed and started running by the time that the first students had even made it to the end of the frosted tunnel. The verdette's enhanced physicality had not only put him in the lead, it was making the gap wider by the second. When did he? Todoroki tried to recall when Izuku had gotten ahead of everyone. I didn't even see him pass me. Yeah. It seems like Midoriya is already in the lead. He launched himself ahead before Todoroki's ice trap even struck the tunnel. Talk about leg strength. Mike announced as all eyes moved to the monitor as it focused on Izuku leading the pack by a significant margin. That's what happens when you don't hesitate. Aizawa spoke up. Midoriya determined the best course of action to escape the tunnel was not to run through it, but to use his enhanced strength to make a single leap and clear it entirely. He approved of the quick and rational actions of his student. You think you're so cool, but I've outsmarted you. Mineta called out, bouncing over the ice while using his quirk to make stepping stones. Huh. How pathetic, Todoroki. The purple-headed boy taunted as he took a weird pose. Take this. My special attack. Grape. He was cut off as a large metallic fist slammed into him from the side and sent the pervert of Class 1A bouncing along the ground. Target acquired. The mechanical voices of dozens and dozens of robots rang out as a horde of one-pointers from the entrance exam tore through the walls that had been set up to outline the track. With a rumble and huge plumes of dirt and dust, 8 zero-pointers rose from their hiding places among the forests surrounding the track. Ooh, enemies have shown up out of nowhere. We're in for a treat here. It's a test of strength and cunning, the Robo Inferno. Present Mike announced while the robots locked onto the students. Are those the zero-pointers from the exam? Kaminari skidded to a halt, along with the majority of the first years. The hero course had to fight those? Someone questioned from the crowd of students. This is what they meant by obstacles? Another student demanded as they stared up at the towering robots. There's too many. We can't get through. A different student cried out at what they perceived to be an impassable barrier. So, this is what the other students faced in their entrance exams? Todoroki commented as he sized up the massive machines. Where did the school even get the funding for these things? Momo wondered as she, Ochako and Kyuka looked at all the robots. Before anyone could make a move, Izuku, who had barely slowed down, dealt the first blow to the Robo Inferno. A massive bang went off and one of the 8 zero-pointers rocked backwards from the impact of Izuku launching himself at it. The verdette had shoulder-tackled the mechanical behemoth and sent it reeling. The massive tank treads came up off the ground from the force of the blow. Begone. Izuku stated firmly as both of his hands rested against the robot's metal torso. The metal below him turned red as heat spread through it. The heat radiated outward, forming rings of increasing temperature as Izuku funneled his pyrokinesis into the metal. The center went from dull red to dull orange to yellow to bright yellow, and finally turned bright white as it completely liquefied. The fallen zero-pointer was bisected via melting in front of everyone watching the sports festival. Whoa yeah! Mike screamed into the microphone. Barely even slowing down, Midoriya destroys a zero-pointer near instantly. What a display of power and control! Present Mike exclaimed loudly. With the obstacle cleared, Midoriya is back on the move, increasing his lead. Many of the watching pro heroes shifted their eyes to Izuku with interest. It wasn't every day that you saw a student like him. I won't let you beat me, Todoroki promised as frost started to accumulate in his right hand and spread across the ground. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they'd have prepared something a little more difficult. Especially since dear old dad is watching. He stated with a mocking tone at the end. The ground froze in a large area surrounding Todoroki and he swiped his right arm upwards, sending a blast of ice and frost at 3 of the remaining 0-pointers just as the massive machines began their attack. The robots stood no chance as the ice encased their metal bodies and they froze over. With an exhale of frosted breath he ran between the frozen behemoth's legs as he chased after Izuku. "Look, he stopped them," a student called out. "We can get through between the legs." Another claimed loudly. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Todoroki warned the group at large. "I froze them while they were off balance," he informed in a monotone as the 3 0-pointers started to tilt over. The majority of the students ran backwards to clear the area as the frozen giants slammed into the ground. "On purpose." His final words to the rest of the students went unheard in the racket as he rushed ahead. Todoroki from Class 1A attacks and defeats multiple 0-pointers in one hit. Then he traps his competitors behind a wall of frozen metal with all the other robots. He's definitely one to watch. It almost seems unfair. Mike roared as he stood up from his seat at another display of incredible power from the first-year students. His attack was both offensive and defensive. He made a rational and strategic move to ensure his own progress. Aizawa commented as he watched Todoroki chase after Izuku. "That's to be expected of a student who got in through recommendation. He's never even fought those robots before." The Robo Inferno was extinguished by his chart-topping moves. Mike was almost hopping up and down as he commentated. "Like hell, I'm letting Icy Hot and Deku surpass me." Bakugo yelled as he launched himself over the remaining 0-pointers with his explosions. Bakugo, also from Class 1A, clearly does not intend to throw in the towel. Instead of trying to go around, he goes overhead. "Clever," Mike called out as more and more students started making their way through. As expected, 1A and 1B are the fastest to make it through the first obstacle. Snipe noted from the teacher's booth. "The other students aren't bad either. Especially the ones from General Studies who have a chance to get into the hero course," Toshinori mentioned as he watched the race. "But there's a clear difference in training. The hero courses aren't given any time to just stand around," Aizawa stated as the students of Class 1A and Class 1B tore apart any robot that stood in their way. Momo created a fully functional cannon and blasted a 0-pointer's head into scrap with a well-placed shot. Mina dissolved the head of any robot that got near her. Kaminari simply had to touch them and release his quirk for a second or two to fry the robots. Ida could simply kick most of them aside without much trouble. Kyuka could destroy 2 robots at the same time with her jacks and the immense vibrations they send into the robots. Siro and Tokoyami used their quirks to follow Bakugo's lead and go up and over the 0-pointers. During the entrance exam, they were seen as enemies to be avoided. If you see them as opponents to be defeated, then they're just large, slow hunks of metal. They're easy to deal with if you make smart shots. Snipe commented as he watched even the 0-pointers fall to the students. "Now that I've slipped past, it's time to catch up." Toga giggled to herself as she'd completely slipped through the Robo Inferno without even having to fight. With a thought, she activated her quirk and transformed into Izuku. Izuku had a long lead at the moment, but a glance backwards showed several students closing the gap. Todoroki was out in front, Bakugo right behind him, and another Izuku was behind Bakugo. "Wait, what?" Izuku blinked before quickly realizing what was going on. "Himiko-chan, please don't do anything embarrassing while you're in my form." "What's this?" Mike yelled into the microphone at the sudden anomaly. "There are 2 Midoriyas on the track." "What's going on?" "That would be Toga's from Class 1A Quirk in action." Aizawa spoke up as a good portion of the crowd had started murmuring in confusion. When her activation condition is met, she can take on the physical form of another person. It's a perfect copy of the person in question too. All physical attributes, barring the person's quirk, are available to her for as long as the transformation lasts. Talk about next-level roleplay. Midnight gushed, making many people in the audience blush or sputter in embarrassment. Moving on. Aizawa instantly shut his old friend down before she could really get going. "For those of you who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the second one." Present Mike held his right hand to his head with a wide grin on his face. The next obstacle seemed to be a bottomless pit. Tall stone platforms were spaced out across the large canyon, but the platforms were so far apart from each other that only a select few quirks would have any hope of jumping between them. In between the platforms were long, thick ropes that moved slightly in the breeze. They weren't even close to approaching stable footing. If they take a spill, they're out. If they want to pass this test, they'll have to get creative. It's the fall. Mike announced as Izuku finished looking over the massive chasm and the tons of rocky platforms that spanned the width of the obstacle. I can handle this. Izuku smirked, fueled by his quirk. He had boundless confidence. Crouching down, Izuku used his enhanced strength to launch himself forward. The arc of his leap would have brought him down somewhere in the middle of the chasm. Flames erupted from Izuku's hands and feet, shocking the audience. With careful control of his pyrokinesis, Izuku flew over the last half of the chasm and touched down on the other side. Incredible. Midoriya gets past the second obstacle as if it wasn't even there. This will surely increase his lead. Present Mike exclaimed while the crowd cheered as the rest of the students started to hit the edge of the second obstacle. You won't escape. Todoroki declared angrily as he blasted himself along a rope line with his ice, trying to catch up. Using this method he was quickly across almost a dozen platforms and on the other side. Damn you Deku. Don't think for a second that I'm copying you. Bakugo screamed after Izuku's back. Powerful explosions lifted the ash blonde into the air and with proper control Bakugo flew over the entire obstacle. Wow, that's almost unfair. Ochako commented as she watched Bakugo fly over the obstacle. This is no time to be impressed, Ochako. Toga, in Izuku's form, called out to the girl. Ochako blinked at seeing the verdette, knowing he was in the lead thanks to Mick's play-by-play. Let's go. With that Toga used Izuku's impressive physical fitness, and her own familiarity with taking his form, to run across the rope line in front of her. Truly Toga's balance was to be admired. Yes, finally. This is my chance to show what I can do. My support items are going to steal the spotlight from these wannabe heroes. A pink-haired girl with thick dreadlocks snickered as she approached the edge. The young lady was decked out in support gear from head to toe. Everyone, observe what my brilliant gadgets can do. These are my wire arrows and hover saws. You're from support. Ochako couldn't stop herself from exclaiming the obvious. Hey, why'd you get to bring all of that stuff? Mina pointed at the decked-out girl. Hero Corps students get all kinds of special training. So to keep things fair and to give us a fighting chance, we can bring whatever gear we want. We just have to make it ourselves. The pinkette grinned brightly at the two girls. Now watch and be amazed. With that the support corps student launched a cable across the chasm to a platform. Her boots activated and lifted her off the ground with powerful, concentrated fans. I hope all the support companies are watching. With that she launched off the edge and swung through the chasm. When she reeled herself upwards with her wire, her boots kicked up their propulsion and rocketed her into the air. In one shot the support course girl had crossed half the obstacle. I won't lose. Ochako declared as she ran to one of the ropes and started to cross. That gear is just unfair. Mina huffed as she picked a rope and started crossing too. On the other side of the fall, Todoroki looked behind him to see Bakugo gaining ground. The ash blonde was cursing as he forced his quirk to keep going. His arms were starting to hurt and his palms felt numb as if they were asleep. The kickback of his quirk was slowly building up. Is he still getting faster? Maybe he's a slow starter? Todoroki pondered as he increased his speed more. Damn it. Bakugo growled, noticing that Todoroki was picking up speed. You bastards keep looking down on me. The leading three are keeping their positions while the rest of the pack remains mostly clumped together. The number of people that will make it through the first round hasn't been revealed, so no one can relax yet. Keep going, students. Mike encouraged the first years. Izuku had gotten to the final obstacle with his lead still intact. He continued to run even as he read the large sign. Danger Mines was on the large white sign in red. With a running start, Izuku only smirked as his quirk continued to fuel his confidence and pride. With a powerful leap, one that left deep imprints of his shoes in the dirt of the track, Izuku cleared the entire length of the mine field. He didn't even have to use his flames. Landing threw up a cloud of dust, but in less than a second, Izuku was bolting down the track again towards the finish line. I couldn't even announce the final obstacle before Midoriya cleared it. Mike roared in excitement. He just cleared the minefield in a single running leap. What a student. Midoriya knows his limits fairly well. He was able to determine that he could make such a leap in seconds. Aizawa offered his own comments. That's the kind of knowledge that lets a pro operate in the field to their maximum ability. Damn. Todoroki ground his teeth a bit as he slowed and worked his way through the minefield. This shit doesn't affect me. Bakugo declared with a slasher grin as he blasted himself into the air again. His arms were already sore, but the short rest he'd given his quirk between the fall and the minefield had helped a bit. Don't you dare think you can stay ahead of me, Deku. I can't waste time here. Todoroki decided, and a pillar of ice formed under his feet, launching him into the air. The bicolored teen tucked and rolled when he landed and was back on his feet before the 2 mines he'd tripped could detonate. A large platform of ice formed under his feet and he blasted ahead, leaving a trail of nearly meter-tall ice behind him. He felt his body shiver as he pushed his quirk harder and harder to catch up with Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku continued to run. A glance behind him showed both Bakugo and Todoroki closing the gap as they used their quirks to the fullest. With a smirk, Izuku faced forward and went from running to full-on sprinting. The bulked-up verdette became a blur and kicked up a large cloud of dust behind him as he bolted into the stadium. He saw the finish line briefly but passed it and skidded to a stop dozens of meters away before the announcement of his win was blasted out through the speakers. Midoriya makes one last impressive dash as he wins the obstacle race. Mike yelled out as Todoroki and Bakugo crossed the finish line. To Bakugo's rage, the board showed Todoroki beating him by a fraction of a second. The ash blonde growled, even as his hands shook and his arms had a sharp pain in them. Rainbow-colored confetti dropped as the crowd cheered furiously. Izuku raised his right fist in victory. With a proud grin, Izuku looked out over the cheering crowd. He knew many of them were pro-heroes and he could hear and see their excitement and how impressed they were by his skill and power. He exhaled as he lowered his fist and shrank down to his normal height and physique. He evened out his breathing and let his heart rate come back down to normal as he watched the next few students finish the race. A girl with vines for hair, that he was fairly sure was in Class 1B, came in fourth. She was followed by a boy with a skull-like face. The next student to cross the finish line was Ida. The glasses-wearing teen looked less than impressed with his placement in a race of all things. Next was Tokoyami, who appeared to be out of breath. The next person in 8th place was Izuku again. Izuku! Toga exclaimed as her transformation burst apart into the strange liquid her quirk left behind. The girl threw herself into her boyfriend's arms with a beaming smile. Congratulations. You won. I knew you would. You came in the top 10, Himiko-chan. You were amazing. Izuku smiled at her as he pulled her into a hug. Toga only giggled as she snuggled into his arms and relaxed. She'd stop whenever they announced the next event, but until then she was going to cuddle with her boyfriend. The Midoriya home. That's my boy. Hisashi cheered as he watched his son take first place in the first event of the Udata High Sports Festival. Izuku. My baby. Inko was a fountain of happy tears as her husband held her close. She was so proud of her Izuku. Hisashi couldn't help but chuckle as he soothed his wife and her penchant for endless tears. End chapter. Chapter 11, Cavalry Battle. As the rest of the students completed the obstacle race, it was revealed that only the top 42 students would move on to the next round of the sports festival. Looking around at the ones that had made the cut revealed the general studies guy with purple hair that had declared war on Class 1A, the pinkette from the support course, and all 40 of the hero course students. Mineta practically collapsed as he came in 42nd place. Toga's sharp ears picked up conversation among some of the business course students that were observing the obstacle race. She grinned when she heard what they were saying. She fully agreed with them after all. So, what do you think? One business course student asked the other two beside him. Midoriya's stock is going to climb really fast after that showing. The middle teen stated with his hand on his chin. That's certainly true. His quirk looks to be quite powerful. With such a display of power, enough to destroy one of the 0-pointers in one move, not to mention his speed, reaction time and judgment, he's certain to climb the rankings quickly. If you took on his agency's management, how would you market him? The third teen questioned the other two curiously. He practically markets himself, doesn't he? The first teen smirked at the other two. Power, speed, judgment, he's practically top 10 hero material already. He is slightly above average in looks. You could go at marketing from that angle too. With his quirk causing him to bulk up further when it's active, you could even do 2 different types of marketing when it comes to looks. You could open doors for his agency and bring in lucrative merchandising deals like that. The middle teen mused thoughtfully. He's obviously in a relationship too, the teen on the left commented, observing Izuku and Toga holding on to one another. Everyone likes a top hero that's also family-oriented. It's the wholesome angle that makes people smile. You could definitely boost his popularity even further that way. Even the business course can see how perfect me and Aizu are together. Toga grinned happily as she leaned against her boyfriend. While the business course students participated in the festival, for the higher years it was less about trying to win and more about cultivating their professional instincts. Things like selling merchandise or doing marketing simulations during the festival were common. It was all about getting good enough to promote and market the heroes of tomorrow. Now that we have our top 42, we can start the next round. It is unfortunate that not everyone can make it in, but we have to cut the numbers. The next competition begins soon, and the press will be all over it. Give it your all, students. Mike announced to the crowd. Now, let's discover the second round event. Midnight cracked her whip as the wheel on the display began to spin rapidly. Everyone watched on as the wheel spun. The sudden stop revealed the event and everybody was quick to read it. Cavalry battle? A cavalry battle? Ah man, my Quirk isn't very good for those, Kaminari mumbled despondently. He was better at crowd control. If he had to worry about teammates, then he'd have to limit his Quirk usage by a lot. Since it's not an individual event, how is it going to work? Tsuyu questioned curiously, unknowingly voicing the thoughts of several others. Allow me to explain. The participants may form teams of 2 to 4 people as they wish. It's basically the same as a standard cavalry battle. Midnight explained the upcoming event as a screen showed an image of 13 holding up All Might as the horse rider with present Mike and Snipe supporting him from behind. The main difference being that based on the results of the first game, each person will be assigned a point value. So, we're just racking up points like at the entrance exam? That's easy enough. Kirishima nodded along with Midnight's explanation. That means each team is worth different points depending on who is on the team. Jiro noted as she listened on. I get it. Mina beamed with her fists in the air. I'm still talking. Weren't you taught not to interrupt someone when they're speaking? Midnight violently cracked her whip, glaring at all of the talking students. But yes, that is completely correct. The points assigned start at 5 for the student in 42nd place, and then go up by 5 from there. That means the 41st place is 10 points and 40th place is 15 points. Okay then, simple math. Since I was first place, that's 5 multiplied by 42, meaning that I have 210 points. Izuku quickly calculated out his score as the first place finisher of the obstacle race. Not quite, Midoriya. You see, there is one exception to this rule. The point value assigned to first place is 10 million. Midnight gave Izuku a sadistic smirk while pointing her whip at him. Izuku suddenly felt all eyes turn to him and focus intently. In his mind's eyes, everyone had turned into shadow-like silhouettes with bright red eyes. He felt a tinge of nervousness at being the target of literally everyone else. Then he felt Toga squeeze his hand and the nerves vanished entirely. He looked at his girlfriend and received a bright smile in return. They would face this together. That means as long as you have the 10 million headband, you automatically win. Someone said just loud enough for everyone to hear. That's right. It's survival of the fittest, where even those at the bottom can overthrow the ones at the top. Midnight declared with a wide grin. So, it's everyone versus me and Himiko-chan? Bring it on. We won't go down without a fight. Izuku smirked at the other 40 participants. Toga gave them all a slasher smile as well, and several people flinched back from the pair. You'll have 15 minutes to form your teams and strategize. Use them well. Midnight informed the teens before a timer appeared on the large screens around the stadium. It started to count down and many people quickly rushed from the stands to go to the bathroom or to grab some snacks from the concession stands. All proceeds went to UA and helped fund the school after all. Ochako-chan. Toga skipped over to the brunette with a devious smile. You're coming with us. She grabbed the other girl's hand and started guiding her towards Izuku. What? Toga-chan. Ochako flailed slightly as she was brought over to Izuku. While Toga was securing Ochako, Izuku was accosted by a different girl. Hehehe. Just as I thought, this is great. You stand out really well. Mei grinned as she hovered over to Izuku on her hover soles. Izuku actually flinched backwards as he turned to face the girl only to find her inside his personal space. Can I help you? Izuku asked the pinkette curiously while leaning back from her. Team up with me, Mr. 10 Million? Mei grinned manically at the tall boy. Who are you? Izuku questioned as the girl hovered in place. The pinkette laughed as she stepped back and pulled her steampunk-style goggles up. Izuku could now see her eyes, which had unique yellow irises with what appeared to be a crosshair naturally formed in them. It must be part of her quirk. He mused and kinda wanted to ask her about it. Me? I'm Handsome Mei from the support course, and the one that can take you to victory. Mei declared with a wide grin and a thumbs up. And how's that? Izuku raised an eyebrow at the energetic pinkette. I don't know you beyond those delicious 10 million points you've got, but you've got to let me use your position. Mei once again got into his personal space. At least you're honest about why you want to team up with me? Izuku blinked at the support corps student. Of course. If I wasn't, then you'd have no reason to trust me. Plus, if I team up with you, then I'll inevitably become part of the team everyone's going to be watching the most, right? Mei grinned widely at Izuku. That's probably right. Izuku acknowledged and watched the girl's eyes gleam. Well then, when that happens, all of my super cute babies will be seen by all the big support gear companies. That's free publicity for me and for what I can do. Do you understand that? Mei was once again very close to his face. Much to Izuku's relief, Toga had returned with Ochako at about this time. His girlfriend didn't look very amused by how close Mei was to her boyfriend. She grabbed the pinkette by the scruff of her shirt and pulled her about 2 meters away from Izuku. The hover saws made this very easy for the blonde. When she had Mei far enough away from Izuku, Toga glared into the other girl's eyes. Who are you and why are you so close to Izuku? Toga demanded of the other girl. This led to Mei introducing herself again, and both Toga and Ochako were slightly taken aback by the girl's manic personality. The support course develops the equipment that helps you heroes use your quirks to the max, and I have tons of babies, so I'm sure that I have something you are going to like. Oh, I see this one's caught your eye, Mei smiled widely as she picked up what appeared to be a jetpack. I made this baby based on some heroes' gear, but I added my own original twist to it to make it work a lot better. Wait, are you talking about the Buster Hero Air Jet? I like him too. Izuku smiled at Mei. Toga couldn't stop the grin that formed on her face. Izuku was going to start fanboying over heroes again. You do? Mei tilted her head at him. Yeah, his agency is close to my home, so I went on a tour a few years ago. Izuku smiled brightly. That had been a good day for the hero fanboy. That's nice. By the way, my quirk is Zoom, which allows me to see things at 5 kilometers away or teeny tiny things while I build my babies. Useful, right? Mei gave a brief rundown of her quirk to her teammates. That's an interesting quirk. Izuku agreed and really wished he had his notebook to jot it down. But this isn't the only baby I have. Mei pulled out a whole case of different items to show her team. Any of them that you pick will benefit you greatly. Mei promised with pride in her eyes. Ha, I think I have a plan thanks to this. Izuku mumbled as he looked over the devices that Mei had available. Huddle up. The 4 of them quickly gathered around to listen to Izuku's idea. The loud buzzing sound of the timer going off filled the stadium. Everyone in the stands quickly refocused on the stadium floor. All of the teams had formed and several of them were clearly eyeing Izuku's team. Time's up. The 15 minutes to gather your team and strategize are over. Now let's get the cavalry battle started. Midnight announced to the students and the crowd. She was going to have to focus for this event. Refereeing an event with 12 teams of teenagers ready to fight each other was no simple task. Hey, come on, wake up, Eraser. The second round is about to start. Present Mike shook the dozing Aizawa awake. It's now time for the cavalry battle to begin. We have 12 teams lined up on the field. He exclaimed to whip the crowd up. Mike was a consummate showman. There are some interesting teams out there. Aizawa commented as he took a few seconds to look at the teams. Now raise those battle cries. It's time for the bloody battle. Present Mike declared, and the crowd roared in excitement. You're exaggerating. I doubt that there will be that much bloodshed. Aizawa gave a side glance at his old friend. Mike ignored him entirely as he continued to fan the flames of the cheering crowd's excitement. Here are the teams. Mike called out as the screens around the stadium flipped to show the names of each team and its members. As everyone read the team names, many were shocked when they saw the name of the team at the top of the list. This was supposed to be the team with the most points. In this case, it should be Izuku's team. But that wasn't the name on the screen. What the? Several people blinked as they looked at the team name. Team Toga. Everyone had expected Izuku, as the winner of the first event, to become a rider in the cavalry battle. But Izuku had chosen to become the front horseman, with Ochako on the left, Mei on the right, and Toga as the rider. Damn Deku. Running away from me? Bakugo was gritting his teeth at the decision that Izuku had made. He had been one of the people that expected Izuku to be the rider. How was he supposed to take on that damn nerd if he wasn't the rider? Tie on the headband anywhere from neck up, Toga hummed as she sat atop her team with a wild grin on her face. 1 knot, double knot, triple knot, quadruple knot, quintuple knot, and done. The blonde was pleased with her handiwork. Her headband was now more like a choker around her neck. Even if someone got a hold of it, they wouldn't be able to just pull it off. All right. Every team is ready to begin. I'm not going to ask if you're ready or not. Present Mike yelled loudly, stirring up the audience as they eagerly anticipated the beginning of the sports festival's second round. Now let's go. The countdown to the brutal bloody showdown begins. You're exaggerating again, Aizawa drawled as the countdown began. As the timer ticked down, Izuku looked back to his teammates, confirming they were all ready. They each nodded, and Mei had a wide grin on her face. This is going to be so great. Everyone is going to see my babies in action. Mei gushed happily. Her hover saws were on Ochako's feet and her jetpack was on Toga's back. As soon as the cavalry battle started, they'd be off. I'm ready. Ochako nodded as she touched Mei, Izuku, and Toga. A pink glow briefly surrounded each of them as her quirk took effect. 3. Mike began the countdown. 2. Midnight called out. 1. The entire stadium roared. Izuku smirked as his body bulked up and heat began to exude from him. Not nearly to the level he could take it, of course. He wouldn't want to endanger his teammates after all. Begin. Midnight yelled as she snapped her whip with a loud crack. The 11 other teams all rushed Team Toga in unison. But what else would be expected? Having the 10 million headband was an instant win. Every team wanted it. Now it was only a matter of which of them would get it. Everyone's gunning for the 10 million points right off the bat. Mike exclaimed loudly as everyone watched the rush. Midoriya, I'll be taking those points, thank you very much. Toru declared from her place as rider on her own team. The invisible girl was going topless to try and obscure her body. The fact that the headband was still completely visible kind of made that tactic fail though. All within expectations. Mei laughed at the other teams rushing towards them. Hover saws on. Ochako started floating off the ground by a few centimeters. As the only one with any weight on her team, she would use the support gear to assist with mobility while keeping everyone else weightless. Jetpack go! Toga exclaimed with her right hand raised and her index finger pointing towards the sky. She clicked the control in her left hand and the mostly weightless team flew into the air. What the? Many students cried out in shock. They can fly. Kaminari cried out from Todoroki's team. Woohoo! Toga whooped with joy as her team flew high into the air. Aren't my babies amazing? Mei was practically sparkling as she saw all of the attention their team, and by extension her babies, were getting from the stands. They're awesome. Toga declared with a smile at the pinkette. She cut off the jetpack's power when Izuku tapped her leg. With careful control of his flames, he matched the output of the hover saws that Ochako was wearing. The nearly weightless team began a slow, controlled descent from over 100 meters in the air. It looks like the plan is working, Midoriya. Ochako smiled as she looked down at the stadium. We're too high up for anyone else to reach us. Once we're in range, they'll start gunning for us again. Izuku turned to look at the brunette with a grin. So we'll have to be prepared for that. Don't you worry, my babies can handle that too. Mei almost cackled as she handed 2 gun-like items to Toga and 1 to Ochako. The pinkette took 1 for herself too. Capture net guns. If any of the other teams have reach or members that can fly, we can tangle them up in 1 shot. Your babies are awesome, Mei. Toga grinned wickedly as she looked over the 2 capture items in her hands. This plan wouldn't work without Ochako's quirk either. Izuku praised the zero-gravity quirk user. It's no problem. Ochako smiled brightly at her team. I think we'll be in range soon though. Sure enough, the first-place team was floating back into the stadium and 2 specific teams both took notice. Todoroki glared at Team Toga as he directed Ida towards where the group would land. Bakugo didn't even wait for that. As soon as he determined that Izuku was within his quirk's effective range for flight, he launched himself into the air. DKU. Bakugo roared as he blasted his way through the air towards Team Toga. Nope. Toga grinned darkly as she aimed one of her capture net guns at the asshole as she thought of him. Bye-bye. She pulled the trigger and the round rocketed towards Bakugo. What the hell? Bakugo roared as the round exploded into a red net in front of him. Before the net could ensnare him, he let off a powerful blast to tear through it. Get that shit out of here. He roared only to see 3 more rounds coming at him. He blasted himself upwards to dodge the first net, juked to the side with a large blast to avoid the second, and then stopped his explosions entirely and entered free fall to dodge the third. He had dodged all of the nets, but at the cost of moderating his quirk for flight. With a snarl, he used lighter blasts to slow his descent so that Zero could grab him with his quirk and reel him in. Would you at least warn us before you do that? Zero yelled at Bakugo. If you fall too far away, you'll hit the ground before I can reel you in. He's right. Mina declared with a huff. You'll get all of us disqualified if you touch the ground, you know? Bakugo, you've got to chill, bro. Kirishima tried to stop Bakugo from exploding verbally against his own teammates. I know you want the 10 million headband, but if you get disqualified it won't matter. Damn it. Bakugo seethed as he urged Kirishima after Team Toga. Midoriya, I'll be taking that headband. Todoroki stated coolly as his team raced towards Team Toga with Ida as their front man. So you say, Todoroki? Izuku replied with a look in his eyes that made Todoroki glare at the verdette. That look just screamed that Izuku had no doubt that he could keep Todoroki away. With a swing of his right arm, Todoroki sent a wave of frost towards Team Toga. The cold was met with a wall of fire that swept over the field. The opposing forces clashed, but the heat of the flames won out. Only steam remained of the ice that Todoroki's quirk had formed. With a grimace, Todoroki prepared to wall off any escape routes and prevent other teams from interfering. Walls of thick ice surrounded the two teams in seconds. A loud string of curses, followed by explosions, let everyone inside know just how Bakugo felt about being blocked out. Ida, can you get us close fast enough to snag the headband? Todoroki questioned his front man. I have a move that I've been saving, it'll only last for 10 seconds and after that I'll be useless. Ida mentioned to his team leader. If we use it with this much time remaining, I don't believe we'll be able to protect the 10 million points. I'll handle it, Todoroki stated as he breathed out frosted breath. Just get us close enough. The plan didn't even begin before a wall of flames rose between the two teams. Team Toga rocketed back into the air, escaping the box of ice walls, and was far out of reach once again before anyone could do anything about it. Todoroki almost snarled at seeing Izuku's team escape. It was Momo that brought up a good point. How are we going to get out of these walls you've made, Todoroki? Momo questioned the two-toned rider of their team. Everyone in Class 1A knew that Todoroki had something against using the left side of his body, the fire quirk that it held. No one wanted to pry too much, but if he didn't melt the walls with his left side, then Team Todoroki was functionally out of the cavalry battle. Boom! An explosion blasted a hole through the wall of ice behind them as Bakugo finally forced his way through the barrier. The ash blonde looked royally pissed off as his eyes scanned the inside for any sign of Team Toga. Not seeing them, Bakugo glared harshly at Team Todoroki. Where the hell is Deku? Bakugo demanded of the other team, his palms crackled with small explosions. His team flew out of here a second ago. Kaminari replied, and everyone saw a vein bulge out on Bakugo's forehead. He what? Bakugo yelled so loudly most of the other teens flinched at the harsh sound. Turn around, Kirishima. We're going after Deku. Hurry up. Alright, you don't have to yell. Kirishima turned their group around and headed back out of the ice walls. On the bright side, this does get us out of the trap you made. Kaminari tried to look on the bright side. Todoroki's cold look as he urged Ida out of the hole in the ice wall dimmed even Kaminari's usually upbeat attitude. Unbeknownst to the two teams chasing after Team Toga, another team was rather stealthily making their way around the battlefield and snatching headbands. The team was a very unlikely one, but the rider on top wasn't the one in control. That job went to the purple-haired teen on the back right. Another one down. Shinso grinned as Mineta, their rider, tied another headband onto his head. The lower half of the short teen's face couldn't be seen anymore with how many they had. I must admit, this is going very well. Tokoyami, the front man, commented as they jogged away from another trapped team. Truly magnifique. Aoyama grinned while sparkles seemed to dance around the blonde. I wish you'd stop controlling me. Mineta complained to Shinso. If you'd stick to the plan and stop perving out, then I wouldn't have to. Shinso snapped back to the short boy. Now put your head down again. Your stature makes it really easy for you to hide behind Tokoyami's quirk. Mineta pouted but did as told. Leave defense to me. Dark Shadow cawed with its arms spread wide. I'm going to get into the hero course no matter what it takes. Shinso thought to himself as the time continued to tick down. The combination of his brainwash, Mineta's pop-off, Tokoyami's Dark Shadow, and Aoyama's naval laser let them trap opposing teams, make them hand over their own headbands, defend against attacks, and keep other teams at a distance when necessary. It was the best strategy that Shinso could come up with after only seeing their quirks during the obstacle race. The simple fact was that of the initial 12 teams, only 5 still had headbands at all. That proved that their strategy was effective. They would be in second place easily. Shinso had pushed himself mentally and physically through the ringer nearly every single day since he'd failed the hero course entrance exam. He worked out, practiced parkour, weight trained, studied everything he could think of that would be useful to a hero, from strategy and tactics all the way to critical thinking and investigative reasoning. He wouldn't fail again. I refused to give up on my dream. Shinso thought as they jogged away from the remaining battles. End chapter. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share, and donate for more videos.